Look what I got, a box of plants. Oh yeah. What's up guys, Devin is here with another episode of Plant Vibrations with me, Devin Wallin. And what is this box? This is a box of gorgeous, soft, tropical succulents. I've been in the market for some new succulents to adorn my patio and outdoor garden for the rest of the summertime, which I will then bring inside for the winter time. And I finally found a company that I think has the best selection around, really reasonable prices, and they ship nationwide. It's a company called The Next Gardener out of California, and I just got my box here in Pennsylvania. I'm in Eastern Pennsylvania, Zone 6B, and this box just came today, and I wanted to do an unboxing video showing you guys all of the lovely succulents that I got, and then giving you guys some care tips on how to grow them as indoor plants, hybrid indoor-outdoor plants, or outdoor plants if you live where it's warm all year round. So, before I open it up, why do I love succulents? They are the cutest plants in the garden. Have you ever seen a plant cuter than a tropical succulent with jelly bean-like foliage, pancake foliage, seaweed-like foliage? And they also come in tons of different colors, which is really unique, especially if you're having them as a house plant inside. It can be really challenging to get beyond that color green inside. So having a few splashes of succulents like these can really lively up your home planting environment. Without further ado, let's open this box up and see what's inside. Well, first thing you'll note, those shippers, they always like to give a little bit of risk to the equation, don't they? That's okay, I'm sure they'll be fine. Succulents, native to some of the most harsh condition areas around the world. Oftentimes they're found in deserts, places with hot, dry, arid climates. Some places where it's really hot all year round. Other places where the days are hot, the nights are cold. So really they're plants that have adapted to some of the harshest conditions. So I think a little bit of damage on the box, they're just gonna be laughing on the inside. All right, let's open it up. Oh la la. Oops, oops. Definitely opted for some cactus succulent mix to make the growing a little bit easier. We'll talk about that in a second. Everything has arrived outstanding. Check this out. They have really packed these plants with a lot of love and care. That's always a great sign. And the thing is if some of the plants do fall out like that, that's okay. What they're sending are well-rooted plants, so that means they're going to be fine if they fall out of their pot. That doesn't matter. Oh my gosh, look at how they've all arrived. They look so beautiful. All those colors and textures, purples and greens and blues. Some of them have fantastic geometry like only Mother Nature could create. And another thing I love is that all the plants have clear markings of exactly what they are. So how do you know if the plants that have arrived are actually of high quality, like these plants? This is the golden rule. This is what you do. You take your plant, if you can grab it and take it out like that, and it all comes together, that means the plants are well rooted. That means they have been growing under optimal conditions and they've sent you a nice plant that is ready to be transplanted. Anytime you pull the plant out and it kind of leaves a bunch of soil back in the pot, that's a bad sign. That means the plants were not ready to be sold or shipped out. So, all these plants are absolutely fantastic. I am so excited. All right, so now that we have all of our succulents out, let's go ahead and pot them up. But first, how did I actually go about choosing these? Well, one of the things that I love about succulents like these is that some of them look a little bit spiky. Like this is Echeveria elegans alba. Check out the texture of this plant. It looks like it's gonna be kind of spiky and pointy, but it's absolutely soft and beautiful to the touch. So many succulents, they have that appearance like maybe it's like an agave where you're gonna pick it or where you're gonna touch it and like prick yourself. Not at all. These are all wonderfully soft to the touch. Now, First thing we want to do is we want to make sure we get the right container. If you haven't seen my video all about container inspirations, go check it out. And in the video, I had mentioned that I love using terracotta, especially for succulents like these guys, because terracotta are very porous containers. They allow airflow to enter and exit through the sides of the containers, whereas plastic or glazed ceramic containers, they don't allow for any airflow to enter or exit through the container. And one of the most important things for our succulents is that they have great drainage and amazing airflow. So I always tend to stick with terracottas just like this. I also like to use some of the shallower containers because likewise, that means I can have more plant mass with less soil, and that's going to allow the containers to drain very efficiently, just like it would out in the desert. Remember I was saying they're native to areas that have gravelly or sandy soils that drain very, very sharply. We want to recreate that situation in our containers at home, all right? So now that you have your right container, let's talk about the soil mix. You could absolutely make your own soil, or you could make it easier on yourself and purchase a pre-made soil for your succulents and cactus. That's what I did. I bought this professional grower soil mix for cactus and succulents from the Next Gardener, along with these succulents, just to make my life a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and get started by filling out about, I would say, 2/3 of the container with our soil mix, just like that. Now, I typically like to cluster a lot of succulents together, and that's going to allow them to really create a nice full look in the container right from the very beginning. So just start popping them out. And because they're so nice and rooted, you can do a nice little gentle breaking up of that soil, but you don't need to do too much. Now you can see here it's a little bit below the lip of our container, so that means we need to add a little bit more soil first. You really want the succulents to sit just at that upper lip, and that's going to allow them to kind of overflow over the edge, creating that really nice, cool look right from the beginning. But you don't want them too high up so that the roots are exposed. So you got to find that real nice, happy medium. You can give them just a little bit of room to allow them to grow in. So when I'm planting out my succulents, I really love to do a lot of the rosette forming succulents. This is a rosette forming succulent. This is Echeveria texensis rosea. And then you can kind of spruce in some of the more upright succulents like this one, Crassula moonglow. And that's going to create a nice kind of varied effect in your container, rather than just having all of the rosettes or all of the uprights. Kind of give a little push and pull of the different textures and colors together. And it's also fun to have some of the more upright ones in that center area. Now once you have it all planted up like this, I like to use a spoon to try to just put a little bit more soil right in between all of the succulents, so there's not any extra gaps. Look at this beautiful planter. Alternatively, if you have one succulent that you really think deserves its own container, like this beautiful Echeveria, you want to make sure, number one, it's going to have drainage holes. Number two, that you don't put it in too large of a container. If you're transplanting something in a 2-inch container, you really never want to go larger than from like this size to this size if it's just one single plant. Otherwise, they will be swimming in too much soil and have a much higher likelihood of rotting from staying moist too long. But speaking of staying moist too long, it's time to water these guys in. Definitely, you need to water your succulents right once you've planted them. Now, when it comes to watering, there's a few things you really need to keep in mind. This is probably going to be the most important section of this video if you've had trouble with your succulents in the past. Now, during the summertime when they're actively growing and they're well rooted, you can water your succulents pretty regularly. Now these plants, while they were well rooted in those small containers, they have not had a chance to fill out their roots in this container, so these will need to be watered quite sparsely, once every 7 to 10 days at the very most, during the summertime while they're outside in their active growing state. Now, I absolutely think it's the very best thing to do to have your succulents outside in the summertime as long as the nights are above 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's going to allow them to grow the best, to have the most enjoyable experience, and to fill out your containers as you would want them to do. Now, once those nights start to dip below 55 degrees, you want to bring them inside the home and have them as a houseplant in the home. If you live where it stays warm year-round, keep them outside year-round. If you don't have any outdoor space, then you need to really consider having them in the brightest, sunniest window possible. Southern facing window, or using additional supplementary grow lights for your succulents. So now, that being said, when we're watering, we want to do it nice and gently. We want to do our best to ensure we're not watering on the actual foliage, but watering the soil around it so that the roots can soak in nicely. We remember that succulents retain moisture within their foliage, and for that reason, they're very drought tolerant and don't need to be watered nearly as often as other plants in our garden. Just that little much is perfect. Now I'm going to just kind of tuck them in a little bit better in case they moved from the watering. Get them nice and settled. I'm also going to water this guy in. Oh, that's okay. Now in terms of lighting, these have all been greenhouse grown. Succulents generally love a lot of sunlight, but you can't take a plant that's been grown under a greenhouse and place it out in the hot blazing sunlight right away. You need to give them a chance to adapt to the outdoor conditions before they're absorbing that hot, intense sunlight. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this beautiful planter here on this north-facing patio. It doesn't get any direct sunlight, but it is exposed to the natural air and temperatures out here. It's quite bright, and I'll leave these here for about a week. And then I'll slowly start to give it a little bit more sunlight, and eventually I'll place it in an area that gets maybe 3 or 4 hours of direct sunlight every single day. Some varieties of succulents can absorb more direct sunlight, some less. So you just have to do a little bit of research on what plant you're actually growing to know how much your succulents can absorb. Now, once the nights start to dip below 55 degrees, that's your cue to bring them inside. Now, during the winter time, your succulents are going to be going dormant. That is very important for you to understand. They're going to be sleeping, and as such, they're not going to be growing. And since they're not growing, they don't need much water. That means a plant that already doesn't need much water needs even less. So during those winter months when they're inside, you can water your succulents once every 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks. Once or twice a month is all the water that they're going to be needing. That's not to say that they can go all winter without any water. That's not true, but they really don't need much. Now, in terms of fertilizing, succulents, because they come from those areas of the world that have pretty poor quality soil, they really don't need much fertilizer. You could honestly never fertilize it and they'd probably be just okay. But if it makes you feel a little bit better, which it definitely makes me feel a little bit better, I typically will fertilize mine once a month during the summer months while they're actively growing outside. So that's kind of what you should think about when you're thinking about watering and fertilizing your succulents. So just to summarize some of the key points when growing tropical soft succulents like these is you really need to keep them outside in the summertime if you want to see them flourish and grow and provide new beautiful foliage, have that most lustrous color, that wonderful textured foliage. That is the key. You also need to know that your plants are growing in the summertime and they're dormant in the wintertime, and how that affects how much water they're actually going to be needing. Thirdly, when they're outside in the summertime, they love to absorb a lot of good sunlight. Inside the home, a supplementary light and or a southern facing window are essential for succulents' happiness. And last but not least, you want to start with happy, healthy plants from a purveyor that you trust, like the Next Gardener. So go check them out online. They have an incredible selection of succulents. They ship across the country and they have great prices. You really can't beat that. Anyways, if you have any further comments or questions about succulents, if you've had your own experiences that are a little bit different from what I've been speaking about in this video, make sure to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to get updated for every single time that I'm uploading a new video just like this. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me here on Plant Vibrations. I'll catch you soon. Ciao.